This video is how to get a base install of Asterisk going. Asterisk is a VoIP service which can be used to connect standard SIP or VoIP phones to, and you can run SIP trunks and a PBX within your building. So I generally prefer Debian. You can choose whatever Linux distribution you prefer. I'm going to do Debian. And while that's downloading, let's create the virtual machine. So create a new virtual machine. Name it something sensible that you'll be able to identify what it is in the future. Linux. And Debian 1064, no, sorry, it's Debian 9 64-bit. Going to store it on the only storage I have on this server. And for disk size, you actually don't need a huge amount, nor do you need a huge amount of memory. CPU, I'll go back and edit that in a minute once I've checked what the host has. So 2 GB of RAM is absolutely fine. I'll start with that. And disk space, it's actually recommended 16 GB would probably be fine. And in fact, I've got quite a lot of spare space on this server. I'm going to start with, or set it to 30 GB. I looked at one which I built a couple of weeks ago, and it's only using 2.6 GB of space, and likely even through fairly heavy use, I would be surprised if it gets much above 3 GB of space anyway. But having 10 times that as a capacity that we can write up to is still a good idea, and especially when you're doing if you do thin provisioned, it doesn't actually take up the space on the server drive until such time it uses it, but that's up to you whether you want to do thin provisioned or thick provisioned. Leaving it as the default is absolutely fine. And then I shall create that. Right, so now I need to upload that ISO that we've downloaded, the Debian install. So I've gone to the storage, gone to the data store browser, install ISOs, upload Debian. The Debian install is now stored on the virtual host. We can now go and attach that install disk to Asterisk PBX. So we're ready to install. I want to go to DVD drive, data store ISO, install ISOs Debian. So once you've selected the data store ISO file, make sure that you click the connect option here. And then also it's a good idea to go to VM options, boot options, and where it's got the boot delay, I'm going to set that to 5 seconds. Otherwise, it attempts to boot just straight off the hard disk or possibly the network boot, whereas we need a couple of seconds to press the escape key to tell it to boot off of the DVD drive. So I'm going to power this on. And the moment I can, I'm going to click in the black screen and press escape, which gives me the boot menu. I'm going to go down to the CD drive and press enter. Now, I'm not going to do the graphical install because it's going to be a server, doesn't need any graphic stuff, so I'm going to go down to the standard install one, which is the second option down, and press enter. And we want to select English, United Kingdom, British English keyboard. Now give it a host name on your network. pick a root password. And then it asks you to create a standard user. So ages ago, years ago, you'd just set up a root user and then it would be up to you generally to create the extra users. The install options these days force you through creating a standard user, and the idea is you log in as a standard user and then you use su or sudo to become the root user or do operations as root. So I'm going to create a user for me. Now in this network I've got a fairly restricted setup, so it's unlikely to be able to contact a time server. So I'm going to press cancel on that. This is a virtual machine, so I've absolutely no problem with it using the entire disk because it will just use that entire 30 gigabytes of space that we've allocated to it through VMware. And it's not a particularly complicated setup, so I'm going to use the all files in one partition option. And finish partitioning and write the changes. And I need to go over to the left-hand option here for yes, and then enter. Right, so after a really long time, on my system at least, it's installed. It's probably going to be quicker on your system. I've got on this machine, one of the guests is doing a Windows update and is keeping the system busy as well. So we've got to a screen saying, do we want to scan our media, which basically will check the DVD for defects. There's no point. We downloaded it. We're pretty sure that it's going to be accurate. So skip on that. United Kingdom. And then I'm going to select a mirror. I think we'll go for oxford.ac.uk. Whether you use a proxy. While we're here, what's quite important is to make sure that your Asterisk machine starts on startup of your virtual host. So I'm going to go to the auto start option and make sure that that is set to enabled. And if it's your first ESXi guest, you'll also need to go into the manage section and enable auto start for the entirety of ESXi. So just going in and turning it on in this menu isn't good enough if you've not previously turned on auto start. So at some point you'll get asked whether you want to take part in a package survey. There's not a huge amount of point taking part into that. And here we are now at the stage where we can select what we want to install on the system. So we don't need the print server, and we do not need the desktop environment. We do want an SSH server, which is the way you remote control Linux. So I do want that, and can now go carry on. So continue. This is where it should go off to the internet and download the packages that we want to install. Right, we're now at the stage where it wants to write essentially the boot record or MBR. So we do want to do that, so I'm going to press on yes. And I don't know why enter device manually is selected by default, but I'm going to scroll down or go down and do the dev/SDA1, SDA. So in Linux you have devices, which is /dev, which is a bit like the My Computer, or maybe even Device Manager. And then SDA is hard disk 1, SDB will be hard disk 2, SDC, and so on. So dev SDA is our first hard disk, so I'm going to put it on that. So the install is now finished. It says remove the installation media. So I'm going to Actions, Edit Settings, and it's going to set that to not connected and set it back to host to device. Save. And now I can press enter to continue, and it should restart the virtual machine. So now your Debian or your Linux machine is now booted. It's time to log in. So it's good practice to log in as a non-escalated user. So the one I created for me was called user. You would have obviously created whatever username you chose earlier. And then I'm going to su space and then a minus and then space root, which then escalates me up to root. It's not essential, but it's probably a good idea for external management using VMware to install the guest tools. So click on the actions at the top, go to guest OS, and then install VMware tools. Disconnect the drive and override the lock, yes, if you get asked that. Then you need to mount something somewhere. So we need to mount the CD drive, mount /dev/CD-ROM if we're lucky. So that's device, so essentially device manager, CD-ROM, and then mount, which is /mnt is the mount directory or the common mount directory in Linux. We'll see if a CD-ROM folder exists. No, it doesn't. So I'm going to create that, which is mkdir for make directory /mnt/CD-ROM. That creates a blank folder, and then I'm going to run the mount command again. And it's a CD, so it's mounting it as write protected because you can't write back to a CD. We then want to go CD as in change directory, not compact disk, /mnt/CD-ROM, and you can do dir in Linux, but I prefer ls-l, which shows it as a nice list along with file sizes. One trick you might want to know is ls-lh. H stands for human readable, so where you previously had long numbers like 5559688 for the largest file that's there, the -h puts it into human readable, so it says 54 megabytes. So that's useful to know. So I need to untar or extract that tar.gz file, which is essentially a common format for zip files or zip type files in Linux. I won't be able to do that on the CD-ROM because it's read-only. So if I do the command, which is tar -zxvf VMware, yeah, it just fails to extract it because it cannot open that folder read-only file system. So I need to copy this file. I'm going to put it into a temporary folder. So I'm going to do cp, which is copy, and then VMware tools tar-gz. Everything in Linux is capitals dependent, so make sure that you type the file name with the capitals or not. And you can do autocomplete. So if I do, as you saw there, just capital VM and then I press tab on the keyboard, it automatically completes the rest of the file name, so I don't have to type the entire file name. I'm going to copy it to the /tmp folder, which, a bit like in Windows, you've got C Windows temp, /tmp in Linux is the standard temp folder. So that's copied that file to the /temp. So I need to go cd/tmp. And I'm going to make another folder, make directory VMware tools. I'm going to move, so cp is copy, mv is move that VMware tools into the new folder that I created, just so that if I extract it into the temp folder, it doesn't just end up polluting the entire temp folder. I want it within a subdirectory. cd VMware tools. So same thing again, tar -zx, which I think is tar-gz, and then x is extract, v for verbose, so you can see the files it's extracting, and f, not actually sure about, but there we go. And this time we're not getting a load of errors. It has actually extracted that set of files. So it's created another folder, VMware tools distribution, or distrib. And let's see whether I can just do /VMware install.pl. So in DOS, you'd just type in run.exe. If I just typed in here, VMware-install.pl, it doesn't like it. It wants a full path, or the easiest way to do that is // which is the current folder, and then VMware, and that will run through the install. So actually, built into Debian, and it may not be the same for you, the Linux distribution that you choose, but it looks like I might just be able to go apt install. So apt in Debian is the package manager, a bit like what you might analogize to the App Store on Mac. apt is essentially a set of applications that you can download. So open-vm-tools, and it's saying it has found it, and it's going to take nearly 8 megabytes of 28 megabytes of disk space. Do I want to continue? And press Y for yes, and then enter. There we go. So that has installed VMware tools, or at least the open version of, from the package manager, the online package manager. I'm going to go back to the base directory, which if we do pwd, which is print working directory, the base directory is /root because I'm logged in as root. And now, if I do IP space address, it will show me the IP address of this machine on the network. We do want to connect to it over the network rather than just use ESXi's control panel all the time. So if I take the IP address that it's got here, 10.10.10.62 for my network. Obviously on your own network it'll be 10.142. whatever, or 192.168.0. and then the number. But in my instance it's that. And because during the install phase we selected an SSH server, using PuTTY or SSHing from any other computer with SSH on it will now ask for a login. So log in as the standard user that you created earlier, and then you can do su to root. And now we don't have to be using the VMware thing, and we can now copy and paste from here. And so if I copy that and then I right click, it'll paste. So there you go, I can right click, which is going to be very useful for copying and pasting commands and config lines later. So now we need to go and download Asterisk. And download the latest version. So we don't want a full free PBX in a box. You may wish to try that, but I prefer just the plain Asterisk where you are in complete control of the config files. Free PBX has a web-based interface where it will generate stuff for you, but for a very simple PBX, I recommend going straight into the configs and using this video and seeing how you'd use the configuration files and how the call flow works. It'll give you a whole lot more flexibility in the future. So I want to download the latest version. It's going to do the typical annoying thing and immediately start a download onto my Windows computer, which I don't want, so I cancel that. Copy the address, go back over to the Linux machine that we've installed, and I'm in the /root directory. I now am going to make a folder that I'm going to do all the work in. So I'm going to go mkdir, and then I call it inst for installation, cd inst. If I do pwd for print working directory, we're now in /root/inst. In Linux, wget is the common downloading tool. So I'm going to wget, and now I can right click and paste in that address from the Asterisk website. So that's downloaded the zip file, or the tar.gz, of the Asterisk source code. We can now highlight that, so either click and drag over it or double click. And then we can do tar -zxvf, which is extracting a file again. And if I now do ls-l, we've got the zip file, and then we've got the extracted version of the zip file. So I'm now going to go into the extracted version of the zip file, and there's a bunch of the source code. So the first thing to run in here is a script which will install all of your required prerequisites to be able to compile and run Asterisk. So there's a contrib folder, so contr contrib, and it's then scripts, and in here is a script called install prereq. So what I was doing there is I did contrib and then pressed tab, and it auto completed it. And then if you tap tab twice, it gives you essentially a dir, or a list of the files, which is quite an easy way to navigate the file system. So install prereq, which is the prerequisites, and then press enter. And we want to do install prereq and then install. And it's asking, do we want to do this and install 17 or 18 megabytes worth of extra programs? Yes to that. And on this screen, it's asking for the country code for the telephony. So the US would be 1, the UK is 44. So if you ever use a mobile phone, you'll probably see +44 at the beginning of mobile phone numbers or landline numbers. So 44 is our ITU-T telephone code. So that's the prerequisites installed properly. We can now do make and then a space. Sorry, no, before we can do that, we do /configure, which will run through your system and just make sure that everything that you need is in place. And it's saying here, which may be different for you if you're using a different Linux distribution, but in this instance it's saying we need to run configure with this extra command on the end, with Jansen bundled. So I'm just literally going to copy and paste that. I will also keep a note of that in Notepad, because we may need to rerun the configure later with a different switch. We need to add it onto the end. So I'll just make sure I have a note of that. And I'm going to paste it back into there and run that again. So we are now ready to select what options we want to compile. So I'm going to do make and then space menu config and then enter. This is going to compile a small menu system and then display the small menu so that we can change what options we want or what features we want within Asterisk. So here we are. So the first things I do want to change is probably enable MP3 format. And the other thing that I know I do want is under the sound, core sound packages. I prefer having the highest quality that you can get. So I'm going to go for the WAV sounds, but I'm also going to go further down, undo the GSM sounds. With GSM is a bit like what mobile phones used in the early days, which is really not very good quality. I'm going to also, as well as having this Core Sounds EN WAV, I'm going to scroll down to the Core Sounds ENGB WAV, which is the Great British ones. And then we don't, unless you want to run any other languages, you don't need any of those. Then the next thing I'm going to do is extra sound packages, and again I'm going to do the extra sounds EN-WAV and the ENGB extra sounds WAV package as well. So WAV is uncompressed audio, so it's always a good idea to start with the highest quality audio and then send it over a telephone line, rather than starting with GSM, which is ropey to start with, and then sending it down a phone line, which is also ropey. So we can now save and exit. And now we're ready to compile Asterisk. So just type in make and then press enter. And this section will take a while. It's basically taking all of the source code and compiling it into a full program ready for you to then run. So I'll probably I've sped lots of bits of this video up, but this bit of video will definitely be sped up. And I'll see you on the other side. Okay, we're back and it's done compiling the main part of Asterisk. It has given us a warning here, which is I told it to do MP3, but I hadn't previously downloaded the MP3 source code. So it's given me a command here to run. So I've highlighted that. I'm going to right click to paste that and run that again. So that's downloaded it. All we need to do second time is type the command make. It'll skip past all of the stuff it's already compiled and it will just do that MP3 section. And there we go. That's now all compiled and ready to install it by running make install. So what what we've got right now before I run this make install command is the program is all compiled, but it's all still within this inst asterisk folder. It's not within all the system files and standard places where it needs to be. So the make install will copy all of the files into the correct place. Right, that's put all of the programs into the correct location. So the next thing is run make basic-pbx, which will create you, as it says there, a basic telephone system. So there's now one last step, which is to make sure that asterisk starts when you start up this Linux machine, which is make config, which is the startup script, and then the other one that's useful is make install -log rotate, which will rotate the log scripts every week, or just means that it won't fill up the drive with irrelevant log files. And there we are. We can now ignore that inst directory exists, or you could delete it or do whatever you want. So if I go to the CD, which is the root folder, and I've got the inst folder, to delete it, it's rm space minus rf. So rm is remove, space, and then minus rf is like the switches. R is for recursive, and F is for force, so it won't go, do you want to delete this? And you have to go yes. Do you want to delete this? And you have to keep going yes. And then we want the inst folder. If you're being trolled on the internet, some people will say the command to complete whatever you want to do is rm space minus rf and then just a /. What that will do is just delete your entire drive. It's a bit like selecting everything in C drive and trying to delete that. So just be very wary when you are using the rm command that you're deleting the file that you expect to be deleting. And there we go, my inst folder is gone. But now, if I do the way you start and stop services, so a bit like the equivalent of services.msc in Windows, is the init folder. So if we do /etc/init and then .d, and then in here you'll see programs that you have installed. So I've got asterisk, cron, SSH services there. I'm going to do asterisk, and if I just do that, it should say what I'm able to do. So I can start, stop, restart, reload, force reload, or status. If I do status, it should tell me that it isn't started. Active, inactive, dead. So if I do start, and now try and do status again, it says active, active, and running. So that asterisk is running and should also start when I restart the server. So a bit like the services.msc in Windows, that's just started a service. You can't see anything. It doesn't load a program onto the screen or anything. The easiest thing there is to asterisk minus rvvv. So asterisk is the program, obviously, and then minus r is resume, to resume the session which is already running as the service. And then the vvv is verbosity, how much messages it displays on the screen. 3 of them, or the more V's you have, the more messages or debug information it will display on the screen. So I tend to always run it with just 3 V's, and then enter. And there is asterisk. So if we go core show version, it's already shown it there, but it shows asterisk 16.3 built by root, and then the date that it was built. The other commands we could do would be pjsip show endpoints, and I'll go through all of these later on in the video or in one of my other videos about how to build your PBX with extension numbers and everything. So you'll learn more about that later. And then if we do exit, the exit command does not shut down asterisk, it just takes you out of the asterisk shell. basically. So I can go back into it, it's still running. I wonder if I can see the uptime. Yep, so it's been up nearly 2 minutes, so doing just exit does not shut down Asterisk. If you do want to stop Asterisk, you could either exit out of here and do the etc init.d asterisk and then stop. The other way you could do it is in asterisk shell, you could do core space stop space now, and that forces Asterisk to quit. Any calls that would be ongoing then would immediately get dropped, and any new calls that try to come through also won't work. So again, be very careful when you run that command. You can also run another command, which is core stop when convenient. So if I restart Asterisk, core stop when convenient. I'm not sure if it's 2 words or 1 word. Oops. May have been a bit eager connecting to Asterisk. No, Asterisk has failed to start. So etc init.d asterisk start. Let's do restart and force it to close whatever might have been left open. Core stop when convenient. And what it will do there is waiting for inactivity to perform a halt. So if you needed to restart, the other thing you could do is core restart when convenient, and it means that if people are on the phone, it will wait until all of the calls have hung up and then it will restart Asterisk for you. So the other things which are probably helpful to know is that the configs are stored in /etc/asterisk. That's where you'll find the pjsip config for configuring endpoints and SIP trunks, and also where you'll find extensions.conf, which is where you'd set up your dial plan and basically all the call routing and where calls end up and where they'll ring, how long they'll ring for, etc. The other useful location to know is the sounds folder, which is in /var/lib/asterisk/sounds, and then the region. So have EN just for the American sounds, or EN_GB for the UK sounds. It's worth having a look through that folder at all of the file names, and it gives you a good starting point for some messages which you can have Asterisk play out, or the built-in messages, so you don't have to record your own if you're making a dial plan. I hope this video has been useful to you. If it has, it would be really helpful to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel. You don't need to have the video notifications switched on, but the subscriber numbers really do help. If you're interested in more Asterisk stuff, the VoIP-info site is a very good site for further information. The Asterisk website has quite a lot of documentation as well, and also have a look in the description of this video, because if I've made a further video on other Asterisk based stuff, I will have a link in the description.